Yep, it says we're live. All right, hopefully we're live on Facebook too.
All right, thanks for hanging in there, anyone who's watching live. Welcome to this week's segment of Ask the Trainer. My name is Alison, and I am from the Behavior and Training Department here at Animal Humane Society. Hopefully you enjoyed our segment last week on dog reactivity with Sam. If you didn't get a chance to check that out, I'd recommend going and watching. So today we're going to be talking about animal enrichment, which is a super fun topic. And I have a ton of stuff to show you guys here for some DIY puzzles that you can make for your animals at home. So first, I just want to take a couple minutes and talk about what enrichment is and why it's so important. So enrichment is anything that you provide your animal with, whether it be a puzzle toy or something that you expose your animal to. So it could be as simple as taking them on a new walking route around the block instead of your normal route that you take. So new exposure or providing them something that will improve their well-being. So that right there is one huge benefit, but most specifically, what it does is it improves cognitive function, so their memory, ability to learn, things like that. It also has been shown to decrease fear response, like Sam talked about last week. And then other than that, in general, the more tired your dog is, the more mental stimulation you provide them, not just dogs, but animals in general, they will be less likely to bark, chew things up, any unwanted behaviors like that. So lots of benefits to provide mental stimulation and enrichment. So one thing before we get started with all these things I have to show you today is that you want to start easy. You don't want to start off really tough at first. It'd be similar to providing, let's say, a kindergartner with a really hard math problem. If you gave it to them, they probably, they wouldn't even know how to start it, so they might not even start the question or the problem in the first place because they would get frustrated and not even know what to do. So we want to set our animals up for success. So whenever you're providing them something, you want to make sure you're doing it at that dog's or at that animal's level. So some really easy ones right off the bat, if you've never done this before with your animal, something as simple as instead of feeding them out of their bowl, you could simply just kind of scatter their food around on the floor. They have to go forage for their food that way. You could even make it a little bit harder and maybe put it in a little easy hiding spots around the house. So they have to go find it that way. I have a regular bowl here. Something else that's pretty easy to do is just to simply flip it upside down. If it has this little lip in it, you can just scatter the treats in that way, and it's just a different way for them to eat. So even something as simple as that can be a great way to start off with. Let's see, we have a bunch of stuff. And first I'll say you could, if you really wanted to, they do have some neat puzzle toys out on the market. Usually they tend to be a little expensive, so that's why I'm showing you a bunch of DIY stuff today. Things like regular Kongs or Kong wobblers, where the treats come out of here. This one, you unscrew this, put treats or their kibble in here, and then they have to pull this to get the treats to fall out. So that one's a little more difficult. And then we have things like this, where you put the treats or kibble in, and then you have to slide the puzzle around to get that. So there are some out on the market that you can get for your animals, but I'm going to show you some really easy things to do. So let's start with this box. So this is just a regular cardboard box. You can put shredded paper in here. You could also put maybe some towels or fleece or fabric, whatever you want to fill it with, and then just toss the treats in there or their kibble again, and they have to kind of rummage around to get their food out. So that's one you can do. You can also take toilet paper rolls and then cinch the ends together like this to make a little pocket for them with their food in, of course, in there. And then that way they kind of have to like tear it open to get it. Another fun thing you can do with toilet paper rolls is you have a box like this. This one's kind of fun for cats, is you can make a little, you fill them up. I don't have a lot, but if you filled it up completely with toilet paper rolls, they have to put their paw in there to get it out. Another thing that you could try is with this type of box. Again, the same thing. They just kind of paw the food out from there. Okay. Egg carton is another really easy thing. This one has a few different levels to it. So the first thing you could try is just to put the kibble or treats in here. And again, they have to paw or lick it out. To make it a little bit harder, you could simply just close it, but not all the way. And then to make it more hard, close it all the way, so they have to figure out how to open it or open it and open it that way. Or like my dog would probably do, he would probably just rip the entire thing to shreds, which is fun for them as well. All right. Ice cube trays. These are really handy, especially in the hot summer months, just to give them a cool treat. Again, you could simply just put their kibble or treats in the holes for them to get out, or you can flip it upside down and put treats in that way. You can also fill it with healthy things for them, like maybe some mashed banana, chicken broth, wet food for cats or dogs, whatever you prefer or whatever they prefer. And then you can freeze it, make little popsicles or kitty-sicles for them, which is a nice, fun summer treat. So there's that. Another easy one is to simply take a towel, throw some treats in there, and then roll it up. You could make it that simple, or you can make it a little bit more difficult by maybe taking another piece of fabric and wrap it around again, so they have to get that piece of fabric off first before unrolling the towel. Okay, another one is you could take a plastic bottle. You can even just have an empty bottle without the top on it, and then put dog food in there. That's pretty easy. They just roll it around to get the food out. You can make it harder by cutting some holes in and closing it up. With anything, I forgot to mention this in the beginning too, you want to make sure, the only rules with enrichment really is that you want to make it safe. So you either, you want to supervise them so that they're not, choking on pieces of small plastic or anything like that. And make sure that whatever you put in there for their edible treat is something that's healthy as well. Okay, another thing, if you have a box like this with drawers in it, you can put their treats in here. This is actually full right now, but you can put their treats in there, and that way they have to learn how to pull the drawers open to get food out. Okay, let's see. We have these. You could put treats in the bottom of one container, put another container on top. Easy thing to do with just regular plastic containers that you have around the house, or plastic Tupperware lids. You can maybe smear some peanut butter on here, make a peanut butter sandwich with Tupperware lids, and then maybe tie it together so they have to pull it all apart to get the treat. And then we have a lot of fun stuff here. So you can use muffin tins with tennis balls. Again, put the treats in there, put the tennis balls on top. They have to pull the tennis balls off to get the treats out of there. And then you can also play the cup game with them with some plastic cups. Put treats in one of the cups and then switch them around. They have to figure out which cup the treat is under. And then another thing you can do with plastic cups, we've shown this in the past too, is you can cut some holes in it, tie some string in there, and then if the holes are in the right place and you have some heavy treats in the bottom, it'll weigh it down. And you can tie it to maybe in between a door frame or some chairs, and then your pet has to flip the cup over to get the treats to fall out. So it's another fun one to see them do. Again, some of these later ones are a little bit more difficult, so you might want to try easier ones at first, but they're really fun. And as we're going through these, comment below with what your favorite ideas are that we've shown, or if you have any other creative ideas. Really, your only limitation with enrichment is your own imagination. So these are just some ideas to get you started. Another one that we've shown in the past are Snuffle Maps. We use these a lot in our training classes. So you're going to take a plastic rubber mat, and you could even just use that as the enrichment, sprinkle their treats in, and they have to get the things out. Or you can take strips of fabric or fleece, tie them on the rubber mat, and then when you flip it over, you have this great little fleece area where you can sprinkle treats in, and then they have to filter the treats out. Okay. All right, this one is a little bit harder too. What you could do with a Kleenex box is, let's say you have, you could either take a Kong, a stuffed Kong, or maybe let's say this is a bone or a treat or something, and then you can take some string, wrap it around there, put it in the Kleenex box, and then tape the Kleenex box to a door frame or a wall, somewhere up higher, and then have the string hanging down. So they have to pull the string out from up above to get the treat out. So that's a really fun thing. Another thing that's similar to that is to take a Kong, and this is a Kong wobbler, but you'd take a regular Kong where you stuff it, and then you can tie that from a low branch, and that can be a fun thing to do outside with your dog. Just they'll kind of bat it around, and then that way they'll try to get the food out when they catch it. So that's fun. I didn't think if there's anything else we didn't show. I think that was, oh, I have one more. Take these out. So again, this one might be a little bit harder, but if you had, this isn't a very big box to do this with, but if you had a big cardboard box, you can take their food in their bowl and then put it in there. Again, you would probably want to use a bigger box. You could even tie a little string to it, so they have to pull their bowl out to get their food out of the box. So that's another just different idea to use. So I think that was all of my DIY things. Do we have any questions about those things from the audience at all? Otherwise, I do have some questions that were sent in last night that we can answer as well. If we don't have any questions on enrichment, we can switch topics, and I can do a little Q&A for everyone.
We do have an enrichment question.
Okay.
Up here. So JMH Crafts Memory Bears asks if you have any ideas for enrichment for dogs that aren't necessarily food driven.
Okay. So my first question would be, are they being fed at specific times of the day? Do they have food out all the time? Sometimes it's beneficial, depending on what your vet would recommend, to have food out all the time. But if there's not a medical reason to, you could just try cutting them, like only having food out at certain times of the day. And that might make them more hungry at those times of the day. So you could try using their kibble or other dog treats mixed in or something like that at those times of the day where they might be more hungry. All animals are really naturally motivated by food. It's how we live. So it's, I think, sometimes just a matter of figuring out maybe timing with certain animals. But you can certainly do this with toys too. If they have a favorite toy, you can use some of these things like the box idea to have the dog pull the toy out of the box instead of a food item. Okay.
I have a question for Ginny, and for Facebook, if you can repeat the question, you're mic'd up, but she says with the Kleenex box thing that you suggested,
Yep.
Is the Kleenex box supposed to be upright or the whole facing down?
Oh, good question. So the question was, with the Kleenex box idea, where should the box be positioned? And it's up to you. Whatever is at kind of at the dog's level. I think a harder one would be, let's say you have, if like this was the wall, that the box would be upright, so they have to pull it down to get it out. That might be a little more difficult than if it were like positioned this way or even down. If it was like this, it would probably be pretty easy to pull it out. So It kind of depends on the dog or cat. You could do with your cat too, whatever the animal's level is. I would try that. But yeah, whatever your imagination tells you to do with these things.
Okay, we have another question from Instagram as well as Facebook. Lemon Sizzle asks, how would you have a big dog get used to a cat?
How would you have a big dog get used to a cat? So when you're introducing animals, we're shifting topics a little bit here. When you're introducing any animals to each other, whether it be a dog or dog cat or cat, you want to do really, really slow introductions. So we recommend, when you get a new animal, whether it be here or elsewhere, that you don't just, put your new animal into the home and let them work it out, because that often leads to a lot of heartache, because animals take a long time to get used to living with one another. It's usually different in a context like a dog park where it's a neutral territory, but when it's their living area, to coexist in a living area, it takes a long time. So we recommend doing very slow introductions. You would want to keep them separated in different rooms, maybe an office room or a guest bedroom or separate area of your house with closed doors or gates or some way to keep them separated, but so that they are not able to even see each other for at least a few days, even a week, if you want to play it really safe. I mean, you can never go too slow with introductions. So, but then you would really gradually start to let them see each other a little bit more, create positive associations by feeding them treats whenever they view each other from a distance, and then see if they can get, to close proximity to each other before allowing them to have more of a off-leash interaction. So at first you want to keep it very controlled, very positive, and go really slow are the three main things.
How could you adjust some of these ideas for cats?
Good idea. So I tend to talk about dogs a lot because we're dog trainers, but we do train cats too. And those are sometimes our favorite students, our cat training students. So for cats, I mean, a lot of these can be used as well. For example, the muffin tin, you could just use a mini muffin tin with mini tennis balls instead. So you could just use smaller things instead of the larger things. Or even with giant breeds, you can use larger things. So instead of a small plastic bottle like this, with my dog, I actually used a large water jug, like a Culligan water jug, and cut big holes in it. It ended up being a yard toy because it was pretty hard to have in the house with something that large and plastic. But it can be changed for any size animal. I actually used to volunteer at the Como Zoo, and instead of using the tiny plastic lids like this, we actually use like large plastic containers for the polar bears. So really any of these can be used for any animal. You just want to make it maybe smaller or larger size. Okay.
So AE Rivers 06 asks, how can I get my dog to really work for the food and get some exercise? If you don't mind.
Sure. So the question was, how do I get my dog to work for food? What was the second part of that? And get some exercise. Okay. So exercise is a great thing to give our pets. Mental enrichment can supplement that. A lot of times what can happen with any animal is if they are exercising, they build endurance. And then that walk, let's say like a mile walk around your block, might not be sufficient enough exercise once they get used to that. Same thing with mental enrichment. If you give them the same puzzle toy over and over again, pretty soon it's not going to be as enriching, right? Because it's not new, it's not difficult. So we want to keep increasing the difficulty. So when you say working for food, I would make sure that it's at the right difficulty level for the animal. So make it really easy at first to make it successful, and then increase that difficulty. And that will kind of increase their drive to want to work toward that, if that makes sense.
All right. Amy loves kitties. Asked, how can I train my dog to walk beside me when we're on walk?
Okay, great question. We get this a lot. So I have my stuffed dog here that I'm going to demo with. The question, I should repeat it. The question was, how do I get my dog to loose leash walk with me? So some general tips. First, you want to choose what side you want the dog to walk on. It's totally up to you. They don't have to walk on the right or the left. Let's say I wanted Thunder to walk on my right side. So I would want the leash in the opposite hand that I want him to walk on so that I can have treats on the same side that I want him. It's a lot easier. I'll show you if I have it switched. Let's say I have his leash on this side and I have treats on this side and I go to feed him. Especially if he was down on the ground, it'd be really difficult to go down and feed him treats. Bending my body down all the time to get that to him. But what can also happen is if you feed treats from this side, guess what the dog wants to do? They want to go toward the side that the treats are on. So they end up usually cutting you off a lot. So you want to keep the treats right exactly where you want the dog to be. So how we teach this is just go step by step. Start somewhere really easy, like even your living room. And then you're going to feed the dog a treat when they're in the right spot, which typically would be way back here. So you want them by your hip. So you'd bring a treat down and then bring your hand back up so that you're not just bribing your treat or bribing your dog along the whole time with treats. You want to just feed a treat whenever they're in the correct position, and then bring your hand back up. So it's just this simple action over and over again. And then once they get good at learning that this is where you want them to be, then you can go to more difficult places like maybe your backyard or down to the mailbox and back. But really, again, you want to set your animals up for success whenever you're teaching them new things. So make it really easy with low distraction, and then increase the difficulty after that. Any other questions?
We do have more questions, but let's look at the ones that were submitted yesterday. So I know we had some good ones that came in when we asked in our schooling.
Okay. So this is two of them kind of had the same answer. So we had two questions come in. One was, can you train ferrets? And the other one was, can you train old dogs? And the answer is that you can train any animal at any age as long as they're physically able to do or perform a behavior. You can teach them to do anything as long as they have the capability to do that. So definitely you can teach ferrets. Definitely you can teach old dogs new tricks. And then another question that came in was, what are some alternatives to chew bones? Maybe your dog has some dental issues or whatnot. So any of these things that I showed today are really great alternatives because chew bones can be a form of enrichment. So just providing different things can help with dogs that might have dental issues. And then another question was, someone had gotten a new dog and they were asking what's the best way to train when you have two dogs at home. And going back to what I was talking about earlier with setting the dog up for success, I would put each dog away in a separate room while you're working with the other dog so that they're not a distraction to whatever dog you're working with. And then as they become better, then you could work on things together in the same room as long as they're able to do so. And then, let's see, another question was how to teach loose leash walking, which I just showed. So that one's good. Trying to think of what other questions we had. So this was an interesting one is, how can I teach my dog to play fetch? And this one can be a little complicated. But in general, what you would do is you want to start with the end behavior and then move your way backwards. So the end behavior is I have a ball and I want my dog to drop it into my hand. So you might just start with getting the dog to pick the ball up and drop it into your hand, giving them a treat over and over again. And if they don't even want to pick the ball up, then you would work on rewarding them for picking the ball up, which again can be a little complicated. So if you want the details, you can call our behavior helpline and we can walk you through it. But then once they can do that, then you would maybe have them back up a little bit, set the ball down, they pick the ball up and come closer to you because they know that dropping the ball in your hand means they get a treat. So then you just keep increasing distance until you can throw the ball, dog will pick it up, bring it back to you. So again, it's that end goal that we want to teach them is ball in my hand means you get really fun rewards. All right, any other questions that came in?
Yeah, we have another one on Instagram. So, LeBlaze5 said, we rescued a 12-week-old border collie and she has exhibited aggression since day one. On our drive home, she was on my lap and started growling. So, do you have any suggestions for dogs that have sort of like aggression?
Okay, so 99% of, or most cases of aggression come from fear. So dogs will exhibit really subtle signs, something like licking their lips or putting their ears back or becoming really still. Actually, this dog, the stuffed dog, is showing some aggressive body language, tails up. His body's really stiff. He's kind of leaning forward. So dogs will show some subtle signs of stress that are precursors to things like barking, lunging, snapping, biting. And any animal, any dog is capable of biting, really. And so it's our job to watch their body language to ensure that we are keeping them comfortable. So if you're dealing with an aggressive dog in your home, I would definitely reach out for professional help. We have some resources if you want to contact us, and that sort of thing is kind of a longer conversation. So we can definitely discuss that over the phone with you and give you some resources. We'll list our behavior helpline number, so you can call and chat with us about that. Yeah, yep. So our number is 763-489-2202. Again, that's for our behavior helpline, 763-489-2202. For free behavior helpline, we'd love to answer whatever questions you have about anything, really. The only other thing I was going to mention is that we are offering virtual private classes right now. So it's a live thing just like this with you and a trainer. We can talk about whatever topic you want to talk about from the comfort of your own home. We also just started our virtual obedience group classes yesterday. So we have that all set up. That's another fun thing to do with your dog. And then we will be starting in-person classes probably in the next couple weeks here, of course, using a bunch of safety measures. So we'll have more information sent out to all of our current students with more information on that. All right, well, thanks for attending, and tune in next time for our next Ask the Trainer session. Thanks, everyone.